Welcome to Lotus Heart Teachings, where ancient wisdom meets modern reflection. Today, we embark on a journey of peace and inner clarity with 10 profound Buddhist stories that have transcended time. These tales, passed down through generations, offer timeless lessons that can soothe the mind, deepen compassion, and guide us toward a more mindful existence. As we reflect on these stories, allow yourself to relax, breathe deeply, and embrace the wisdom they impart. Let us begin this serene journey together. 1. The story of the lonely garden. There was a gardener who found great joy in tending to his garden. Every morning, he would wake up early to water the plants, trim the hedges, and make sure the flowers were blooming brightly. One day, as he worked in his garden, he noticed an unfamiliar figure walking through the gate. The man, dressed in an old coat, wandered among the rows of flowers, brushing against them as he passed. The gardener, frustrated by the intrusion, shouted at the man to leave. He couldn't understand why someone would wander through his peaceful sanctuary without care. But as the man slowly turned and walked away, the gardener's anger turned to confusion. He realized that the man wasn't doing any harm. The man had simply passed through, unaware of the gardener's efforts or his frustrations. At that moment, the gardener's anger melted away. The lesson from this story is clear. Much of the tension in our lives comes from our expectations and reactions to others. The gardener's frustration stemmed from his assumptions, not from any actual threat. When we learn to let go of the need to control others or impose our expectations on the world, we can find peace in the present moment. Often, we allow our emotions to be stirred by things that don't require a response. By embracing the idea that not everything deserves our reaction, we free ourselves from unnecessary stress and find harmony within. Just like the gardener, we can learn to let go and allow life to unfold naturally, without holding on to anger or frustration. 2. The sailor and the storm. A sailor was out on his small boat, navigating the vast ocean, when a powerful storm suddenly struck. Waves crashed over him, and thunder rumbled above, shaking his fragile vessel. Desperately trying to steer the boat through the chaos, he found himself trapped between towering waves and howling winds. But in the storm, the sailor noticed something strange. As the boat rocked violently, he spotted a lone bird soaring through the rain-soaked sky. Despite the ferocious storm, the bird was flying with ease, unaffected by the violent forces around it. For a moment, the sailor forgot the terrifying storm and simply watched the bird. Its freedom and grace in the middle of the tempest struck him deeply. He realized that, while he couldn't control the storm, he could choose how to react to it. He closed his eyes, focused on his breathing, and let go of his fear, finding a calm center amidst the chaos. The lesson in this story is clear. While life often throws challenges our way that we can't control, we can still find peace by focusing on the present moment and our inner response. The sailor's mindfulness in the storm allowed him to regain a sense of calm despite his circumstances. Life is filled with uncertainties and difficulties. But just like the bird flying gracefully through the storm, we too can find peace by remaining present and not letting fear dictate our actions. True strength lies in embracing the moment, no matter how turbulent life may be. 3. The story of the broken vase. A woman was cleaning her house when she accidentally knocked over a beautiful vase, shattering it into pieces. At first, she felt a surge of frustration and disappointment. But as she gazed at the broken shards, she realized something. The vase, while precious, was just an object, and its breakage was an unfortunate but inevitable part of life. However, her frustration wasn't just about the vase. It was her mind's reaction to the accident that caused her suffering. At that moment, she had a choice: to dwell on the loss of the vase, allowing her anger and disappointment to consume her, or to accept the situation for what it was and move forward without adding unnecessary emotional weight. She chose to clean up the mess calmly, accepting that accidents happen and that the vase was no longer whole. This story teaches us the difference between the first arrow, the pain of the broken vase, and the second arrow, the suffering created by our reaction to it. The vase could never be unbroken, but how she responded to the accident was entirely within her control. By choosing not to dwell on the negative emotions, she was able to move on peacefully. Life often brings us unexpected hardships, like broken vases, But how we choose to react to those challenges determines whether we suffer more or find peace. The key to reducing unnecessary suffering lies in our ability to practice mindfulness and acceptance, responding to life's difficulties without adding a layer of emotional turmoil. 4. The story of the dying tree. In a quiet village, a young woman visited an old tree that had stood in the middle of the town for generations. It had provided shade, shelter, and beauty for years, but recently, its leaves began to wither and its branches started to break. The woman, who had grown up under its shade, became deeply saddened by the sight of the tree's decline. She went to a wise elder, hoping he could help restore the tree to its former glory. The elder listened patiently and then said, "Find me a leaf from a tree that has never withered, and I will save this one." The young woman, filled with hope, set off to find such a tree. She traveled to every corner of the village and into the surrounding forests, asking every villager and searching for a perfect, undying tree. But no matter where she went, she could not find one. Every tree had its season of change, its cycle of life and death. Finally, she returned to the elder, empty-handed but with a new understanding. The elder smiled and said, "You see, life is like the trees. All things must go through cycles, and death is a natural part of the process. The tree has lived a full life, and now it is simply returning to the earth. Just as the tree must eventually fall, all things in life are temporary." Acceptance of this inevitability frees us from our fear of loss. When we understand that everything is part of a greater cycle, we can appreciate what we have now without the grip of sorrow or fear. 5. The carpenter and the storm. A carpenter lived in a small village by the coast, known for his skill in building sturdy, beautiful houses. One year, a powerful storm struck the area, tearing down homes and leaving the villagers devastated. The carpenter's own house was badly damaged, and he was forced to rebuild it from the ground up. Neighbors rushed to offer their sympathy, saying, "What terrible luck! Your house was destroyed, and now you must start over." The carpenter simply nodded and replied, "Maybe." As he rebuilt, he discovered something remarkable. The wood he had salvaged from the ruined house was of a higher quality than what he had originally planned to use. With this new material, he was able to build a house that was even more beautiful and durable than before. Not long after, another storm struck, but this time, it was even fiercer. Once again, the villagers' houses were damaged, but to their surprise, the carpenter's home stood firm, protected by the sturdy construction and the high-quality wood he had used. As time passed, the carpenter's house became a symbol of strength and resilience, admired by all. The neighbors came to him, saying, "You must have been lucky to have your house hold up while the others were destroyed." The carpenter smiled and once again replied, "Maybe." Then, not long later, the carpenter's son, who was old enough to be drafted into the army, fell ill and was unable to join the military. The villagers once again remarked, "How unfortunate. Your son is sick and cannot help you." The carpenter simply said, "Maybe." Over time, the illness passed and the son recovered. He went on to become a skilled craftsman, much like his father. His health and absence from the war allowed him to stay home and contribute to the community, and his skills helped further the family's legacy. Life is full of unpredictable twists. What may seem like a stroke of bad luck can often turn out to be a hidden blessing. By maintaining equanimity, we can embrace life's uncertainties with grace, knowing that everything unfolds for a reason. The carpenter's ability to accept each event with a calm heart reminds us that true peace comes from letting go of judgment and embracing the flow of life. 6. The power of non-reactivity. In the story of the Buddha and the insults, the Buddha's response offers a profound lesson on how we deal with negativity. When a man approached him, hurling insults, the Buddha chose not to react. Instead of responding with anger or defensiveness, the Buddha remained calm and composed. His reaction, or rather, his lack of reaction, teaches us something powerful. We always have the choice not to accept the negativity others direct at us. The Buddha explained that anger is like a gift. When someone insults us, they are essentially offering us their anger. However, just like a physical gift, we can choose to either accept or reject it. If we don't accept the anger, it remains with the person who offered it, and we are free from the emotional burden it could otherwise bring. This concept can be difficult to grasp in today's world where it's so easy to react impulsively, especially when we feel hurt or disrespected. The automatic urge to respond in kind, whether with anger, retaliation, or bitterness, often makes the situation worse and increases our emotional suffering. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that we need to defend ourselves or prove something, but this only fuels the negativity and traps us in a cycle of reaction. The Buddha's example reminds us of the importance of emotional discipline. By not engaging in the anger or insults of others, we maintain control over our emotions and protect our inner peace. We don't allow external circumstances or people's behavior to dictate our emotional state. This practice of non-reactivity is a key component of mindfulness and emotional intelligence, as it allows us to observe situations without judgment and respond from a place of clarity rather than impulse. When we refuse to accept anger or negativity, we stop the cycle of harm that would otherwise perpetuate further conflict. This is not to say that we should ignore injustice or allow ourselves to be mistreated. Rather, it means recognizing that we don't need to internalize every negative emotion directed our way. We can choose to respond with kindness, compassion, or neutrality, and in doing so, we disarm the situation before it can escalate. The Buddha's calmness in the face of insults also highlights the importance of inner strength. It takes significant emotional maturity and strength to remain unaffected by external negativity. In a world that often encourages defensiveness and self-assertion, the Buddha's teachings urge us to rise above petty conflicts and maintain our focus on peace, both within ourselves and in our interactions with others. Life is full of negativity, whether it's in the form of insults, criticism, or misunderstandings. The key to protecting our peace is not in controlling others' behavior, but in how we choose to respond to it. By practicing non-reactivity, we stop ourselves from being emotionally affected by the negativity around us, and we can preserve our peace of mind. 7. The Teacup Story. The Teacup Story offers a profound reflection on impermanence, a central theme in Buddhist philosophy that emphasizes the importance of accepting the transient nature of all things. In the story, the monk uses a simple teacup to illustrate this concept to his disciples. The teacup is already broken in the monk's eyes, which serves as a reminder that everything, whether material or immaterial, will eventually deteriorate or change. By acknowledging that nothing is permanent, we can appreciate the value of things without becoming attached to them out of fear or desire for control. The monk's perspective on the teacup is a powerful metaphor for how we experience the world. Often, we get caught up in our desire to hold on to things, whether they are relationships, possessions, or experiences, because we fear their eventual loss. We become possessive, not only of physical items, but also of moments, relationships, and even our own identity. However, by accepting the truth of impermanence, we can let go of this fear and fully embrace the present moment without clinging to the past or worrying about the future. Impermanence is a concept that many find difficult to accept. We live in a world that often prioritizes stability and permanence, and the idea that everything, even life itself, is fleeting can be unsettling. However, the story suggests that it is precisely this acceptance of impermanence that can help us find peace. By understanding that everything we love, value, or cherish will eventually change or pass, we can appreciate it more deeply. Our attachment to things often comes from a place of fear. Fear of loss, fear of not having enough, or fear of not being enough. When we let go of that fear and embrace the temporary nature of life, we free ourselves from suffering. The monk's lesson teaches us that life is precious not because it lasts forever, but because it is fleeting. When we let go of our desire for permanence, we become more mindful and present, able to enjoy and love things for what they are in the moment, rather than for their ability to last forever. This acceptance opens our hearts to deeper experiences of love, joy, and connection, unencumbered by the anxiety that often comes with clinging to the idea of permanence. Embracing impermanence allows us to live more fully and authentically. We can experience the beauty of life without the burden of attachment or fear of loss. When we stop fearing change and instead accept it as a natural part of life, we create space for deeper, more meaningful connections and experiences. The teacup is not just a symbol of fragility, but a reminder to treasure the present moment before it slips away. 8. The gardener and the flower. A gardener worked diligently in his garden, growing vibrant flowers that attracted admirers from the nearby village. One day, a wealthy man who often walked by saw the beautiful blooms and decided to buy the most exquisite flower. He offered the gardener a large sum of money, but the gardener, who valued simplicity and generosity, declined. Instead, he suggested, "If you truly wish to enjoy the beauty of this flower, I would be much happier if you plant it in your garden and take care of it, letting others enjoy its beauty as well." The wealthy man, puzzled by the gardener's refusal, asked why he would turn down such a generous offer. The gardener smiled and replied, "True worth lies not in the price you pay, but in what you give to others. The flower's beauty is meant to be shared, not kept for one person's benefit." The wealthy man, moved by the gardener's wisdom, took the flower and planted it in his own garden. Over time, the flower blossomed and spread, attracting the attention of many passers-by who admired its beauty. The man realized that, in sharing the flower with others, he had not only brought joy to them, but also found a deeper sense of fulfillment for himself. Generosity isn't about giving something of material value. It's about the intention behind the act. The gardener's lesson teaches that true giving comes from selflessness, not from seeking recognition or reward. When we help others without expecting anything in return, we create a ripple effect that spreads kindness and compassion, benefiting not only the recipients, but ourselves as well. 9. The angry wolf. In a small village, there was a wild wolf that had been terrorizing the nearby woods. One day, the wolf ventured into the village, growling and snapping, causing panic among the villagers. They ran to their homes, locking doors and windows, fearing the wolf's rage. Amid the chaos, an old woman calmly stepped outside and stood in the wolf's path. The villagers watched in disbelief as the woman slowly approached the snarling wolf. She spoke softly, her voice gentle and steady. "I know you are angry, but I am not afraid of you," she said. The wolf paused, confused by her calmness, as it had never encountered anyone who was not fearful of it. The woman remained still, gazing at the wolf with compassion rather than fear. Over time, the wolf's growling softened, and it stopped pacing restlessly. The villagers, watching from a distance, were astonished as the wolf slowly approached the woman. Instead of attacking, it sat down at her feet, its aggression dissipating completely. The woman smiled and gently stroked the wolf's head, showing no fear or animosity. She spoke again. "Sometimes, the source of your anger can be eased with kindness and understanding." The story of the angry wolf demonstrates that love and compassion can diffuse even the fiercest of anger. Just as the woman's calm presence transformed the wolf's rage, our ability to respond to fear or aggression with love and understanding can create peace in otherwise violent situations. True strength lies in remaining compassionate, even when faced with hostility, for it is kindness that can calm the wildest of storms. 10. The bridge and the journey. A traveler was on a long and treacherous journey through the mountains, searching for a way to cross a deep ravine that separated him from his destination. After many days of walking, he stumbled upon an old, rickety bridge. The bridge was not sturdy, but it was the only option available. Hesitant but desperate, the traveler crossed the bridge slowly, gripping the ropes tightly to keep his balance. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally reached the other side of the ravine. Relieved, he looked back at the bridge and realized how dangerous it had been. He could have fallen at any moment. The bridge had served its purpose, helping him get across, but it was no longer needed. As he stood on solid ground, the traveler thought for a moment. He realized that while the bridge had been necessary for his journey, he had no reason to carry it with him. It had fulfilled its function and was no longer relevant. With a deep breath, he left the bridge behind and continued his path forward, free from the weight of something he no longer needed. The story of the bridge reminds us that the teachings, beliefs, and tools we use on our journey are valuable for guiding us through challenges. However, once we have reached our destination, we must recognize when it is time to let go of them. Spiritual teachings, like the bridge, are meant to serve a purpose. They help us cross the river of suffering, but they are not the final goal. Holding on to them rigidly can create attachments and hinder our freedom. True liberation comes from understanding that every tool, belief, or practice we use is temporary. When we no longer need it, we must be willing to let it go and continue on our journey with an open heart and mind. As we reflect on these timeless stories, it's clear that the path to inner peace is not through external circumstances, but through our responses to them. By practicing mindfulness, compassion, and acceptance, we can navigate life's challenges with grace. Let go of the ego, embrace impermanence, and find peace in each moment. May these stories continue to guide you toward a life of tranquility and enlightenment. Thank you for joining us at Lotus Heart Teachings.